We're happy to bring on this next guest. We, as listeners of the show know, we like to pay kind of deeper attention to the deeper subjects in football and as a whole. You've got a lot of things that are underneath the surface that there's not enough education on, and we are bringing on Mark Levin. He is and was a salary cap expert in the NFL, worked for the NFLPA for years, worked for Washington, and now he has a consulting business where he advises people. And so we're happy to bring him on and talk with him. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So my first question for you is do you remember? So my co-host is Shayne Graham. Do you have you worked with him at all before?
I don't think I've worked with him directly. I've certainly worked with his agent numerous times.
Well, that's good. Well, yeah, take us through kind of what you did in your various roles, because you've had a long, storied career here.
Yeah, well, I mean, my main role, especially at the Players Association, was assisting agents, the ones that are certified by the NFLPA, with a whole bunch of stuff, mainly helping them negotiate their contracts or their clients' contracts against one of the 32 NFL clubs. So, for example, an agent would call or
but a little shaky.
Yeah, I think you're cutting out a little bit, Mark.
Am I? All right. Is this better?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So an agent would get an offer from a club, one of his clients, and the agent would information. And we would discuss the offer. We would discuss the good points, the bad points, or there were certainly more bad points than good points if the offer is coming from the club.
Hey, Mark, we're losing you here, so I think we're going to try to reconnect with you. But my producer Mike's going to try to reconnect. Can you call back in?
Yeah,
and then we'll patch you back through. Thanks, Mark. Well, that's one of the reasons, because I wanted to have that discussion with you on the air, Shayne, because this is a part that we haven't talked about. We've talked about it somewhat from the financial side of things, which I want to have that conversation further eventually. But the whole agency thing is a part that we haven't talked about much.
Yeah. So, my first experience, and if he's able to patch him in, he can probably listen to what I'm saying, and he may have even been a part of this. When a team and an agency try to negotiate, they have to do everything within the confines of what the collective bargaining agreement allows for. So when that team allows this whatever offer, I'm sure they maybe go through Mark to even send that offer, and then when a team takes that offer and accepts it, or whoever sends an offer, however it happens. So, for example, I was a restricted free agent in 2000 after the 2003 season. That meant that my team gave me a certain value tender, which meant it gave me X amount of dollars, more than the typical minimum. But then it meant there's a compensatory pick and certain things like that the team would gain or lose depending on if another team took you off their roster. So I got an offer from Jacksonville. Jacksonville also offered some guarantees in that contract, and when I signed it, I think it's called an offer sheet or something. I signed it. That meant Cincinnati then had the chance of right of first refusal, which meant they had the opportunity to match it. So they matched it, and then I think they sent the contract into arbitration to nullify the guarantees that were in it, but we found that those guarantees fell within the guidelines of whatever needs or contractual things that you could actually use. So I ended up making those guarantees. They were all incentive based. I made them, so it all worked out. But that was the first time that I knew that it wasn't just this much money. That this year, I knew there was more to it. So Mark knows way more about that than I do.
Well, that's
Yeah, I'm back here, guys.
okay. Great. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
glad you're back on. Yeah, Mark, that's kind of one of the interesting things that I see. That's why I wanted to connect some of these dots. We might have you on for multiple appearances because there's a lot of nuance to this subject. But you know, we're a Michigan-based podcast, so listeners are familiar with Alex Anzalone. Played with the Lions.
Right.
He had a negotiation and tried to renegotiate before this past season, and then went to a new team. He's gotten a little, let's say, combative on social media with the Lions social media team and talking more about the contract process. But again, that part doesn't really grab me. It's the deeper part, but it's the idea that he's talking about, hey, I don't even see some of these things from the player perspective because my agent's dealing with so much. That's why we wanted to have you on, because you're familiar with the agency part of this better than, I mean, almost anybody.
Yeah, so, I mean, I can just, if you want me to just pick up where I left off as far as the role that I was playing.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so as I said before, the agent gets an offer from the club. Then the agent would send that over to us at the PA. We would discuss the offer that the player received, or the agent received on behalf of his or her client. We would discuss its good points, its bad points, and then we would formulate an argument, a counter proposal. We would discuss negotiation strategy. You know, what are you going to ask for, and when are you going to ask for it? You don't necessarily ask for everything all at once. You want to, you got to learn how to play your cards when you're negotiating these contracts. So through the step-by-step negotiation process, the agent sends an offer over, the club will send it back. The agent sends it to the PA for further discussion, and eventually, hopefully, both sides get an agreement. And being working for the players for 37 years that I did, hopefully, more often than not, the agreement is better for the player than it is for the club. Doesn't always work out that way, but you don't necessarily always meet in the middle. Sometimes you're meeting on the team side of the middle, and sometimes they meet on the player side of the middle. But the end game, obviously, is to get a deal done, and that's the role the PA plays. We don't tell the player not to sign. I still say we. The PA doesn't tell the player not to sign, but they'd certainly provide the agent and the player with their advice. But at the end of the day, it's the player's decision whether or not he wants to sign a particular deal that's put in front of him. And then, other things that come up in a player's career, injuries, benefits, all these type of stuff. These are questions the agents, or the good agents, I should say, would call the PA and ask questions about, and not just assume they know the answer on their own. So I got involved in that a little bit. I'm not a lawyer, so I didn't get involved in any type of grievance proceedings or the actual representation of players in disputes. But I would have been leaned on for my expertise in the salary cap area if there was a dispute or something like that. So, and then also with the certification of agents, there's a whole process that they have to go through in order to get certified, in order to remain certified, which is required. The NFL clubs are not allowed to negotiate with anybody that is not certified, or the exception to that is negotiating directly with the player himself if he's unrepresented. So that was the bulk of my job at the PA. And when I worked for the Commanders, I guess I should say, when I worked for the Commanders for 2 years back in 2000 to 2002, I switched sides in the negotiating table. I was now negotiating on behalf of the owner and the GM of the Commanders against agents and against the players. Again, the end game obviously is to get a deal done and everybody's happy. So the 2 years I spent at the Commanders were, to me personally invaluable as far as learning, because then, seeing both sides of the negotiating table, and then I was fortunate enough to get a job back at the Players Association, where I remained until last year when I decided to leave.
This is almost like my old job here, Mark. You were in intelligence. You were on one side and then counter intel. Shayne, he was on your side and then he was on the other side and then he's going back. What made you switch back and forth, Mark?
The opportunity to work for a team had always sort of, not always, I mean, over the last the years preceding my actual jumping over to the team, I had thought about it. I had a couple of other teams. I grew up in the D.C. area. I was a huge Commanders fan at the time. I'm no longer a Commanders fan. That's a different story. It was more money. I'll just be blunt. They offered way more money than paying me. And I figured I'd just try something, a new challenge. I knew it was going to help me grow professionally. It just didn't work out with that organization and who was owning it at the time. So then, fortunately, I was able to come back to the Players Association as the head of the department. That was probably, other than having a fantastic wife and fantastic kids, the best thing that ever happened to me is to be able to come back to the Players Association after my 2 years at the Commanders.
Well, it's funny. So the NFL kind of pulled the same move. I think this was right around that 2010 lockout negotiation, when there was a guy that had a very high leadership position within the NFLPA who all of a sudden ended up in a very high leadership position within the NFL. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
You wouldn't be talking about a guy named Troy Vincent, would you?
So I thought that was interesting, because now all of a sudden, the learning experience you gained in your years with the club, you're able, obviously use that to your advantage, I'm sure, see both perspectives. But then I just remember it kind of was, we thought as NFL, members of the PA, that was kind of a backdoor, I don't know. I think we took a little bit of an exception to that when that happened.
Yeah, there was a little, rumor and innuendo as to actually what went down, which I honestly don't know. Yeah, that's a good analogy there, Shayne.
It is interesting to have kind of the sides flip flop. It makes sense because you're learning the totality of the negotiation, but right. I guess it's a testament to you, Mark, that you got hired both then on the team side, which makes sense. They were used to being on the player side. They knew you had the experience there, but then to be hired back by the NFLPA is a pretty big vote of confidence there. Yeah,
well, one thing I've learned, you don't burn bridges, right? When you're leaving one job or another, especially in the business of sports, where it's a huge business, but it's very, very, I don't know if incestuous is the right word, but everybody knows everybody, right? And you never know whether when you leave a job, whether you're going to run into somebody 5, 10, 15 years down the road that may be able to help you again. So I always made a point that the two times that I left, the one time I left the PA to go to the Commanders, then coming back, I didn't burn any bridges. I left on good terms. I was able to maintain relationships on both sides of the coin there. But the other thing that was professionally for me, I was at the PA when the CBA was first negotiated. The basics of the current one in 1993. I learned the salary cap on the ground floor. I was provided the CBA by Gene Upshaw, and he really gave me an ultimatum. It's like, you either become our salary cap guy or you're not going to work here anymore. Because for other various reasons, they were making a bunch of staff changes at the time, all this other stuff. I'm like, well, shit. Heck, I didn't want to leave. So I said, I'll learn. And I learned from the lawyers on our side, the PA side, that literally wrote the CBA along with the lawyers on the management side. So I was put in a position that not many other people in the business of football were put in. So I had some unique experience, which I think was attractive to the Commanders. I had established very good relationships with a lot of the agents who recommended, who recommend me to go to the Commanders. But once I got to the Commanders, I knew pretty quickly, within a year. I did a 2-year contract to go to the Commanders. Within a year, I knew this wasn't the right place for me. And it wasn't more because I found myself working against the players. It was solely because of the ownership of that team. And so I called Gene Upshaw back. I still had a very, very good relationship with, and said, Gene, whatever you can do to get me to come back, I need to come back. And it all worked out. And I didn't leave for 25 or 23 years after that.
That's great. Well, and tell us what you're up to now here, because now you're kind of more in the consulting space, right?
Yeah, so me and a good friend of mine who was a lawyer at the PA, we both left early last spring to open up a consulting company. And he's a lawyer, I'm not. We're both basically doing the same exact things that we were doing, just not under the umbrella of the PA anymore. I'm still advising agents on contracts, on market value, still answering questions about the CBA regarding player rights. My business partner, Todd Flanagan, as an attorney, he's representing agents in disputes against other agents. He's representing players in disputes against universities about some NIL stuff. So we're more or less doing the same stuff we were doing. We were just operating for ourselves now and trying to generate the business, our business. And, we have a few clients. We don't have a whole lot, but we have a few. And the other big part about our business is for folks that are wishing to become certified by the PA as a player agent, they have to pass a test that the PA. Both Todd and I were two of the main writers of questions for the exam for the last 22, 23 years we were there. So we provide test prep services to folks who have applied for certification, are going to sit the exam coming up in July. We have a whole month of classes scheduled coming up in June. So if anybody out there is listening, has already applied to be a certified agent and wants some test prep, you're not going to get better prep than from two people who actually wrote most of the exam in the last 20 years.
Nice. So I have a question. I'm a little curious.
Yeah.
So with the current landscape of NIL in colleges, you talked about how you got involved with disputes. Are you guys involved at all in any of that when it comes to, just, I don't know if it's disputes or negotiating or anything and helping out or just involved in that space? And if you are, I imagine it has to be very confusing because I think every state has slightly different laws, and then you've got the NCAA rules, and everything just seems like it's very just chaotic.
Yeah, we're going more in that direction, I think. We're not involved a great deal of time. The thing that we're working on that I can't really talk about just yet, but we're getting more involved in that NIL space. So I think, the signs are going to be pointing that some of our business is going to be a little bit more focused in that area in the coming months to a year. But up until now, we haven't really put a whole lot of emphasis on that because neither Todd nor I knew a whole lot about that. Consultants, you don't want to go out there and try to pull wool over anybody's eyes that a particular part of this. We weren't pretending that we knew anything about it, but we're learning as we that is going to occupy more of our time come in the next year or so.